Guys, welcome back to another episode of The Curious Cat. Today's video is going to be a little more on currency and money and just ways that you can diversify, as we are seeing a tremendous drop in the value of government currencies. It's more important than ever to have your capital diversified and to essentially have some of your money outside of the banking system and whatnot, and to have it in some of the alternative currencies. So today's video, I'm going to be speaking a little bit about money and currency and just showing you, maybe opening your mind to some other possibilities and whatnot. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with some friends and family that might find this information useful. And it's a really important time to be getting this information out there. So hopefully you do help me out, help the channel out by getting this video out there and just exposing more people to it, as we're seeing a rapid decrease in the value of dollars, and which is very unfortunate because a lot of our friends and family, especially our parents' generation, the boomers, who are all looking to retire, all their currency is losing its value at an alarming rate. So if they're not aware of this information and all of their money's in these government currencies, well, they're in big trouble, because they're going to look at retirement and their dollars just won't buy them what it used to. We've already seen a devaluation of 98% of the purchasing power of the US dollar since its creation, and I think we're seeing the final leg down at the moment as these government currencies essentially revert to their intrinsic value, which is zero. So that's why I'm a believer in hard money and hard assets, actual physical, tangible money that has intrinsic value and stuff that we can hold in our hands, unless you're talking about something like Bitcoin, which I'll get into a little bit later. But with all that said, I'm just going to show you guys kind of what it looks like, some of the other currencies. So here we have it. This here mostly is silver. So we have little silver rounds here. These are minted by the Canadian Mint, just beautiful coinage. The Canadian Mint buys most of the 4-point silver. So when I say 4-point, you can see how it's 0.9999 there. And essentially, oh, sorry about that. The rest of the silver in the world is 0.999. Or sorry, the minted silver, and essentially this is just that much purer with one more 9 on there. So they call it 4-point silver, and it's the purest in the world. And the Canadian Mint buys, I think it's over 80% of the 4-point silver in the world. So the only way to get the purest silver is to buy the Canadian silver here. So just really beautiful silver. And I'm a believer that with all these new technologies coming out, a lot of the new tech uses silver, and I think in the future there's going to be a strong possibility that some of the technology will require really pure silver. So I mean, that's a speculative bet, but for some reason, I believe if you're going to hold silver, why not hold the purest silver and just have that much more purity. It's just really nice and shiny. It feels great to hold. It's got some weight to it, that kind of stuff, opposed to these, government bills, which are now made out of plastic. And this is becoming a thing of the past too. When I go and pay with my cash now, people look at me funny. They always pass me the reader there to use my debit card or my credit card, and they're always surprised when I use cash. So this is already becoming a thing of the past, and now it's basically just digits in a computer. And the reason we're seeing the war on cash is obviously because they want to tax every single one of your transactions. They don't want people to have the option to transact in cash, because they want to essentially tax every single transaction that ever exists. So this is going to become a thing of the past very soon. All the governments are already working on digital currencies. So I think it's a no-brainer that that's the way we're going. And hopefully we go to a currency that's backed by gold and silver, or it's probably just be gold if anything, but I don't think we'll see it. So I do think it's important that everyone's holding a bit of gold and silver, because as they inflate these government currencies away, you want to have a hard asset that they can't just come in and print more of. You actually have to mine this. You actually have to put the energy into minting it. So there's tremendous value there. It's not you actually have to go and put something in to get this, where this, they essentially just print. and they just hit print on the printing press, and it's very easy to do. So here we have a 10-ounce bar. So this is again by the Canadian Mint. It's got a little more weight to it and whatnot. So just this right now in Canada is worth over $400, this little piece, and these are getting upwards. They're about $50 now, especially for the 4-point Canadian maple. You can't get them right now. They're pretty much out. I think you can get some of the 2020 coins, but the previous years are all sold out now. You can't even pre-order them. The mint is just out of them. So there's a premium on these, and you will pay more than just your average 1 ounce round, just because of the extra 9 in there, the extra purity that you see with the Canadian maple. So we have that, and then here we have a 100-ounce brick. You can see it does tarnish, so that's one of the downsides of silver. You do get tarnishing. Very heavy, so if I'm trying to flee the country or something, you know, not very discreet. If I have one of these in my pocket, I don't even think I'd keep my pants up. And this is only worth about $4,000, a little over $4,000 here in Canada, so it doesn't have that much value for its weight. But it is a solid metal, and it's got a lot of intrinsic value because, like I say, it's used in over 10,000 industrial applications, and it's essentially it's needed by so many people. And the other beautiful thing about silver is, you know, there's this war on cash right now, and they're saying, oh, you can't use cash because it's dirty, it can carry the coronavirus. And that, to me, it's pretty obvious. It's just an excuse to force people into using their credit cards, using their debit, so they can track every one of your transactions. In reality, there's, you know, just wash your hands. If you're using this after, just wash your hands. It's no different than picking up a product in the grocery store. You know, maybe it's a little more dirty, but I think that's just an excuse. And the beauty is, if people would have stuck with silver and gold as currency, well, it's very antimicrobial. Silver kills more viruses and bacteria and stuff like that, 3 times more than all of the antibiotics in the world combined, from what I've read. So nothing will survive on this. You could transact with these. If everyone was still using silver as a currency, we wouldn't be running the risk of transmitting the coronavirus through our currency. But of course, they've led us to use all our coinage now are just alloys. The penny used to be copper, it no longer is. The nickel used to be nickel, and the dollars used to be silver dollars. So all of the currency used to have actual metal in it, and that's where it had its value, but they slowly phased that out. They duped the general public and slowly got us to use the currency, the change, which was just made out of alloys, cheap alloys, no real metal of value in them. And then they pushed it to these bills that have absolutely no value here in Canada, just made out of plastic, complete garbage. And I mean, at least it's a little more durable, I guess, than the paper money down in the US. But my point being that there's no intrinsic value in these. You can't even start a fire with this, you know, without inhaling a bunch of toxic plastic smoke. So, and then you got to look at some idiot politician that, well, sorry if you're a fan of this guy, I don't even know who he is, but I don't like politicians. He probably stole a whole bunch of our money back then, acting as our overlord or whatever. So I don't like it. I prefer tangible assets that have real weight to it. There's you know, intrinsic value there because it's used as a metal. Some people offer that gold has a lot of intrinsic value, but they really don't use gold in that much anymore. The only place they use it is in jewelry and some really highly sensitive electronics. But in all reality, that is going to be replaced with graphene very shortly because it's even more conductive than gold and it's a lot cheaper. So that argument that gold has intrinsic value, I don't see it. The only value there is because people believe it has value. They want to wear it because it's shiny or whatever, but there's not really that much intrinsic value in gold, in my opinion. The best property about gold is just how rare it is and how much energy it takes to mine it, get it above ground, and turn it into a coin to mint it. So that's where the value is in gold, but I just don't see it having huge intrinsic value because there's really very little industrial applications for gold. We used to use it in a tiny bit of it in highly sensitive electronics, but you're seeing that get replaced with graphene now. So I think that's going to be a thing of the past. So that's just some of my points on that. However, as you can see, this right now in Canada is worth over $3,000, this little coin. So it's got a lot of density. You can really have a lot of wealth in a tiny amount of weight, and it's really easy to fit that in your pocket and pretty discreet. So if you're trying to move around with a lot of capital, gold's definitely the way to go over silver. So this is basically, it's worth a little bit more, but not much more than this tiny little coin. They almost have the same value right now. I think in the future, this will be worth a lot more, as we're seeing the price of silver rise a lot quicker than the price of gold. I've been telling people we'd see that for some time, and now it's coming true, as people just can't afford gold anymore. This tiny little coin being worth over $3,000 in Canada, most people don't have that kind of cash. And what, you get one little coin, people aren't very attracted. Where if you're buying silver, you get all kinds of coins for $3,000. So it's just, people are, for one of these, it's about a little over, well, like I said, just under $50 here in Canada, probably about $40 US, or a little under at the moment for one of these. So anyone can afford it. And it's just, when you get paid a paycheck, you can easily just go buy one or two or a handful of these to just kind of diversify a bit. And it's for a savings account. You're not just going to go spend this. Where if you have cash, it's just really easy to go, oh, I got some cash, I'll go buy some beer or something, and waste your money, or buy some stupid clothes you don't need or something like that. So it's another thing I like about precious metals, is once you buy them, it's actually it makes more sense to just hold on to it and save it, especially when the value is rising so quickly like it is at the moment. And I think we're going to see more and more people flee to the precious metals as these government currencies continue to lose their value. So then we have Bitcoin, or crypto. So this is basically what you can store your crypto on. And this could essentially have $1 billion, or basically there's no limit to how much money you could have on one of these. And it's like you can see here, it's not much bigger than a gold coin or a silver coin. And it's much lighter. And there's no limit to how much value you could store on one of these. So it's very portable. That's what I like about it. You could easily slip this in somewhere, hide it, and it's not even going to turn up with a metal detector or something. So you could easily leave the country with something like that, and you could have $1 billion on there, and you could easily maneuver through borders with something like that. Where if I had 100,000 even in silver, it'd be very obvious that one of these only being 4,000, and it's very difficult to lift this. Like if you get 4 of these, you're weighed right down. And so silver isn't that portable. One thing I do like about the minted coins are that they, here in Canada anyways, they have a dollar value on them. So we see they're $5 Canadian. And so when you leave the country, you have to declare anything over $10,000. And basically you can count these coins at a value of only $5. But in real life, they're closer to $50 to get one of these. So you only have to declare 1/10 of the capital when you have it in a minted coin like that, which is a beautiful thing, because that means you can leave the country with 10 times the amount of wealth without declaring it to the government, and basically getting pulled in for a bunch of questioning and running the risk of confiscation, or essentially them, yeah, who knows, just needing to answer all kinds of questions and a bunch of headache you don't need to deal with. Here we can see the gold coin. So this, like I said, is about $3,000 right now in Canada. And essentially it only has a $50 face value on the coin. So again, you get to count the currency at $50. So to have $10,000 worth of gold, that gives you a lot of gold that you can essentially have in your pocket and be leaving the country without declaring. So that's one of the things I like about these smaller denominations, the minted coins, where when you get into the bigger bricks, they don't have a face value. So essentially you'd have to declare its spot price, and that puts the value a lot higher. So that's one of the benefits of using a minted coin. But again, crypto is really nice. You could easily have all kinds of wealth stored on here. It's very small and portable, and you have an extra layer of security, where if somebody got a hold of one of these, they could just take off with it. They could rob me, they'd be gone. There's no way to trace it. There's no way to there's no extra layer of security essentially, but if they got a hold of this, they would still need my password in order to get in. So there's very slim chance they're going to be able to get a hold of my crypto, and there's ways to back this up. So even if somebody got a hold of that, you could have a backup which you could essentially access your crypto and move it to a different wallet, so you don't run the risk of somebody stealing your crypto. Sorry, this camera thing gets pretty funny sometimes. So that's just some of the different currencies. I think everyone should be diversified. I don't give advice, but I think if people aren't diversified at this moment and they do have a bit of capital, they're probably not paying that much attention, because it's a pretty critical time. The governments are devaluing the currencies at an alarming rate, and gold and silver are starting to shine. They're really rising in value like I said they would. I've been telling people this for some time. I don't know. I don't think too many people listen, but I think now I'm getting more and more people messaging me every day, kind of asking about it and that. So I think we are going to see a huge surge in price as people rush to hard assets and try and get into something that actually has some intrinsic value, something that the governments can't just inflate away, like they're doing with these currencies. And as they move to more of a cashless society, and whatnot. So those are just some of my thoughts on currency, on ways to diversify and hold alternative currencies, and ways that you can kind of protect some of your wealth and your capital as these governments inflate everything away. I have been sitting on a bit of cash on the sidelines because I do believe we're going to see another pullback. I think in the fall we'll probably see another lockdown by the governments, which will just essentially shake a whole bunch of people out of the markets. They'll be forced to sell stocks, they'll be forced to sell gold, silver, Bitcoin, they'll be forced to sell real estate. And that's what these elite banking cartel want, because they essentially just print the currency out of thin air. They counterfeit it, and then they come in and they still have people believing that it has value. So people will actually give their real assets in exchange for these phony government currencies. So that's why they do this. They're going to crash the market, and then while people sell and are forced to sell some of their assets to raise liquidity to afford the rising costs of living, and essentially afford some of the bad bets they placed, and how they were over leveraged on stuff like real estate and stocks. Well, when the prices of that start to go down, people are forced to sell their hard assets to basically come up with the money to pay for that stuff. So I think that it really makes sense that the elites, the people who control all this and manipulate it, it makes sense that they're going to force another lockdown, which will essentially force more people to liquidate some of their assets to afford their mortgages and the cost of carrying all the debt that they are. So I'm personally sitting on the sidelines with some cash waiting to come in and buy up some of these distressed assets when that happens. There's no guarantee that that's going to happen. We could go right into hyperinflation, hopefully not. I'm really hoping for a deflationary period, and I think it's more likely that we'll see a bit of deflation, especially in stuff like real estate, where we have a lot of leverage. People are, here in Canada especially, the debt to earning ratio is 1.75 last I checked, and that essentially shows us that most people are highly exposed to debt. And when the jobs dry up and the economy tanks, well, people can't make the money to afford that debt. So then essentially they have to start looking at downsizing and selling off some of these assets that they bought on leverage. So I think that's why we'll see some downward pressure on stuff like the real estate market and some of the stuff like stocks, where essentially there's not much behind these stocks. It's just again a phony number. I mean, sure, there's a company behind some of it, but again, a lot of it's just these techie companies that I think a lot of them are highly overvalued, and that the governments and the elites, the banking cartel, have pushed the value up because of essentially because of inflation. So they've been inflating these asset prices far out of reach. And then what happens is your average person, middle class person, they're just buying now because they're seeing the astronomical rise in value. So they get suckered in and they kind of get the FOMO, the fear of missing out. And so they buy in, and then the people in the know come and dump all their stock onto there, and they get a bunch of money, and then they go into hard assets like gold and silver, Bitcoin, and they also go into cash producing assets like real estate, where they can actually make money off of it. So that's what the smart money is doing. And then basically they're bankrupting the middle class because all of us are holding dollars, if anything at all, and most of us are just holding debt and overpriced real estate. And that can change very quickly the value of this real estate. So people think they're really wealthy when they see their property tax assessment, but what they don't realize is the government, it serves them to essentially assess your property way higher than it's worth, because they get to tax you more money, and then they get to boast a higher GDP for the country because they get to go, oh look, everyone in our country owns $1 million homes. So all the other countries kind of believe their numbers and go, wow, they're really a rich nation. But the reality is all these prices are inflated away and overvalued, in my opinion. And they don't actually have that much value there. I think if everyone goes to sell, you'll see the true value, because there's not much actual cash around. Well, there is. I shouldn't say that. They're pumping all kinds of liquidity into the market. That's why you're seeing prices sustain, even though we're in a crazy economic disaster where we're seeing the largest downturns, even greater than the Great Depression, yet stock prices are still going up, real estate prices are still going up. The only reason that makes sense is because they're printing this currency out of thin air and putting it into circulation. They give it to all their buddies at 0% loans, and essentially the rich come in and buy up all of the real estate, all of the stocks, all of the hard assets, and they do it pretty easy with almost no risk. And then the average middle class person just gets pushed out of the market, and they can't afford it because they don't have cash, or they don't even have access to the loans. Like I've been talking with the banks, and they won't even consider gold and silver when looking at your assets. They don't think it's an asset, which is just hilarious. They'll only consider money that you're holding in the bank that's been in the bank for months, and that's the only way they'll consider it an asset. And so basically they're forcing you to put money into their establishments and run that risk of holding your money and giving your money to another company that essentially you don't have control of it. If there's a banking crisis or you want a bunch of it out, you're basically at the mercy of their daily withdrawal limits, which in Canada right now is $2,000. So even if you have $1 million, you can't access it. You have no access to that money. You can only pull out $2,000 at a time. So what they're doing by doing this is they're forcing people to stay in the currencies as they debase it and they steal your wealth. So more and more people are waking up to this, and that's why people are starting to buy hard assets like gold and silver. But most people will ride the currency down because it takes people a long time to catch on to this, and then by the time they catch on, they see the price has already skyrocketed, like we've seen in the price of gold and silver already, and the price of Bitcoin. And then people start thinking, oh, it's too late, I already missed it, so they don't buy, and then the price continues to go up. And then usually what happens is they'll FOMO in right at the top of the market. They'll buy in right at the end. They'll say, oh, okay, it looks like it's just going to keep going. Finally, I guess I just have to accept it. So they buy in, and they usually buy in right at the top of the market, right when all the smart money is selling, and they just get clobbered that way. So yeah, it really pays to learn about all this stuff. It takes years and years to learn. But it is worth it. Your financial education is the best investment you can make in your life, in my opinion. And a lot of people just don't understand money. They don't understand what real money is. They don't understand where money comes from, how debt works, and all of that. So that's why I like to teach about this stuff on the channel and wake people up to different possibilities and different ways of thinking, and just to hopefully inspire you to go and do your own learning about currency, to learn where it comes from, to learn how the governments use it to essentially steal our wealth through taxation and through inflation. that kind of stuff. So do yourself a favor, learn about money, learn why gold and silver has always maintained its value, and we've used it as money for thousands of years, where these government paper currencies that are unbacked is a new thing. It's new within the last 100 years, and essentially like I said, the US dollar has lost 98% of its value since its creation. So you can see how if you're holding your money long term, you're just losing. It's basically a big hole in your pocket. And the only way to try and shelter yourself and get out of that trap is by holding physical metals and cash producing assets like real estate. But like I said, it's not always an asset. You have to know that the underlying asset, the home that you're buying, is producing more money than it's costing. So only at that point is real estate an asset. And it's my opinion that, you know, there's no point in buying when it's a liability, when you're just buying a home for the sake of living in a home, and it's essentially only costing you thousands of dollars in interest cost and maintenance costs and all that kind of stuff. So again, that's more of a liability. So it's only an asset when you buy it and it's producing cash. You're renting it out and it's producing more cash than it's costing you. So that's when for me, that's when I want to look at buying real estate, is when it's producing more cash than it's costing. And that's what the rich do. That's how they get richer. They don't hold their money in currencies. They hold assets that produce them more cash. So businesses, real estate, rental properties, that kind of stuff. And then they hold the metals. They get in before the herds do. So they've been buying gold and silver over the past couple of years. And now that everyone's jumping in, they'll be selling the highs. It's all orchestrated. So yeah, that's just some of the stuff that's going on. So I'll leave it at that, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a little bit. And like I said, like the video, share it with friends and family, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. With that being said, God bless. Have a fantastic day wherever you are, and stay prosperous.